Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and this is Hangout number 67. I've got a lot of things to talk about. I found so many interesting stories, so much interesting information about evidence, and I am going to talk for a short bit about Delphi and about Idaho. I want to bring up some, lost my voice. I want to bring up some important points concerning what has been going on the last couple of days, which I think is just very, very necessary. But before I start, I just want to welcome everybody who is in the chat room. And by the way, if you'd like to be in the chat room, please link the click below. Click the link below. Yes. It's an auspicious start yet again. I can't even talk properly. So click the link below for Patreon, and you can join in the chat room, which is fabulous bunch of people here with good questions and nice things to say. So hold on a second. I'll make my mouth move today. All right, let me say hello to everyone because we have got a pretty full chat room for 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time for this live show. We have Marzana from Abu Dhabi, who is actually, it's midnight for her. Am I correct? Are you a her? Yeah, I see a female picture, so I'm going to guess you're a she. Welcome. And yeah, it's midnight. It's really hard to find time to do these shows where everyone can participate. So I know some people get to participate less. I am hoping to do some morning shows so that people in your region, also over to Japan, India, South Africa, those locations will have a better chance at coming to some of the live shows. So welcome. Martin's here from the UK. Anne is here from Canada. Mary is here. Let's see. Benny's here from Denmark. Who else is here? Sandra's here. Lisa N is here. Lisa S is here. BLW is here. Let's see. Who else is here? Oh, hold on. Gretchen is here. AD is here. Aunt Deanie is here. I'm going to miss somebody. I always do. Florence is here. Aisha is here. Welcome, everybody. And everybody who's about to come in. And I'll probably miss being here. And Carrie is here. See, people start coming in and then I miss your names. Okay, so let's get to it. Before I start, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe and like the video, share in true crime groups. And if you're interested in any particular case, just go to the search engine at YouTube and put in Profiler Pat Brown in whatever case you're interested in. All right, now, lots of things for Hangout. Hangout is just kind of a time during the week when I gather all kinds of interesting bits and pieces together that I think are useful for learning and to understanding crime and profiling. And so, yes, I have some interesting ones. And somebody did already say, hey, Pat, what about Boy in the Box? They're going to be announcing this tomorrow. Yes, I do know that. And let me read what they're going to be doing. In case you don't know, this is a 1957 case from Philadelphia. A boy about ages 4 to 6 years old was found in a box, and they never identified him. And the case went, well, it's unsolved. They've never figured it out. A lot because they didn't know who the boy was. Well, tomorrow at 11 a.m., let's see, is that Eastern? Yes, 11 a.m. Eastern time, they're going to announce this new development. And they say that they have been able through DNA, through genealogy testing, to identify this boy. And I'm curious as to the details of how they did that, who they did identify the boy to be. So it's been 65 years, and people keep, these tips come in, little lead here and there, but they've never gotten anywhere. Now, if they can identify who the boy is, they may be able to identify what happened to him. He was severely beaten. Very, very sad case. I did profile this case. So tomorrow, I'll put a link below if I remember to do it. But tomorrow I'm going, after the press conference, I will talk about the case and link my analysis to the video. I don't know if I'm going to have a lot to say, but by the time you see this, if you're not here live, you may actually have already seen the 11 o'clock press conference, because this is taped at this point and put up for the public later when it's cleared through YouTube for posting. So this may be old news if you've already seen the press conference, but I am going to try to talk about that if there's enough interesting information coming out. So let's see. Aisha says, your opinion on it will be so interesting and worth it. It's so relevant as the clown is standing trial after decades. I don't know that who said anything about him standing trial. I don't know. Have you seen something about anybody being arrested? I don't know that that person has, because we're talking, well, it's been 65 years. I'm assuming the person who killed the child is somebody who I would think, I can't remember what I said in my video, but I might have to go look at that before I speak. But basically, no family reported him missing. You see the problem. So you would think it was a family member of some sort, which means that they, the persons who were responsible would have been adults. So if it's been 65 years and they were at least, say, 20 years old, they'd be at least 85 years old if they were even alive at this point in time. So I don't think we're going to see a trial, but I'm very curious as to what family essentially they've narrowed the child down to and how they did it. We're very fascinated about that. So, and Aisha says, you mean Gacy? Gacy's one of the serial killers I will have on my serial killer list eventually. I haven't done a lot of serial killer stuff yet, except for Dahmer. He's on my serial killer playlist, and I'm going to be adding specific things about each serial killer as time goes on when I find things that I really want to do about that serial killer. All right, so now that's coming up. Now, a couple interesting items before I go on to Delphi and Idaho that caught my attention. One is this is actually just kind of makes me laugh. Let me find it. Hold on a second here. I had it. Now I've lost it. Where'd it go? Darn it. Hold on one second. Where did it go? Oh man, that's so annoying. That's already happening in this show in the beginning. It's not supposed to happen this early where I can't find things. I can't believe it's not here. What the heck? Maybe this is it. Okay. So there was sorry, one more second. You have to be a little patient sometimes when you come to my shows, because for some reason this disappeared off of my list here, and I don't understand how that happened. Shoot. Okay, basically, I'm just going to do the basically because I just lost the spot. It just disappeared from my iPad. So there was a judge. Judge was in Texas, I believe it was Texas. Yes, it was in Texas, and apparently this guy had killed this little girl, beaten her to death, and so it was such a horrific crime that the judge, when the trial was finished, he said, you should die in a locked closet. And he got nailed for his undignified and discourteous conduct in a courtroom. And they finally decided that he appealed it, and they dumped it and said, okay, it didn't affect the trial. So, hey, we're not going to be all that bent out of shape about it. And he said, you sit through a trial, you watch this guy come out there, and he's sitting there, and you have to talk about what was done to a little child, the brutality to a little child, repetitively tortured her. And then you're supposed to be nice at the end of the trial and just say, okay, well, this is, it takes a toll, an emotional toll on the people who are involved, which includes the detectives. It includes the jury. Some of the juries I really feel sorry for, because they have to sit through some of the most gruesome trials ever, and it affects them for the rest of their lives. And they're forced into jury duty basically, and they're not being paid anything worthwhile for being there. And the emotional toll it can take, I think, is massive abuse of the jury. That's why I believe, again, in professional jurors, because I can take it. I've been around this a long time, and I can sit through a lot of things that are really horrific and manage it. But, just somebody who has never seen things like this before in their lives, it's just terrible. So even this judge lost it and basically said, yeah, you should die in a locked closet. The guy disgusted him so much. But anyway, he didn't get thrown off the bench, and I'm glad, because the trial was open. He didn't disturb anything. So was it undignified? He's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said it, but I felt it and I meant it. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting, just as something for people to understand what happens in the court system, and that, anybody who works these cases, even if they are like me, and I've been accused of being too cheerful during my shows and too snarky and too, flippant, and that I make jokes and laugh. And it's like, how dare you? You're talking about horrible, serious subjects. You're talking about children who've been murdered and families who are suffering. And they're right. But I've also been around it a long time. So I learn how to compartmentalize, and I also can talk about these things without having the emotions well up. Once in a while, you'll see me lose it, but most of the time I keep the emotions where they need to be, which is not right up here. But it doesn't mean that people don't have feelings. So when you have detectives on a scene and they're making jokes on the scene, and it does happen, some terrible crimes, and they will make jokes. They will. And it's not because they don't feel it's pity, and they don't feel sadness, and they don't feel compassion. It's just the way you deal with a lot of very dreadful stuff, essentially. And those are the same detectives who, they might make a joke on the scene, but go home and refuse to ever watch a show on homicide. Myself, I can make jokes, and I can see crime scene after crime scene, but I will not watch horror movies, and I will not watch slasher movies. And I hated the heck out of Criminal Minds, because first of all, because it's stupid and the profiling's dreadful and the whole thing's ridiculous. But aside from that, I hated the opening scene, which always showed somebody being pursued and murdered. And it was always more like a slasher film to me. And I always hated it for that reason. It's like, I don't want to see it happening. It's bad enough you have to deal with what happened, but I don't really want to see it happen and be entertained by it. That I don't like. So I stick with original Hawaii Five-0, a police procedural. So, but I want people to understand that, yes, it does affect people in the business. And even if they come across as stoic or even snarky like me, doesn't mean it doesn't affect us and we don't have some kind of feelings. Let me see what Benny has to say. The judge in the Darrell Brooks trial was very, very empathetic to the victims, but also very respectful to Darrell, even if it did not deserve it. She had dignity. She did. She made it through the whole trial. So did this judge. He made it through the whole trial till after he was, found guilty. It was. I think Darrell Brooks got way too much. Way too much. I don't think they should have allowed a lot of stuff that was allowed in that courtroom. I think it was abusive to everybody. And Darrell Brooks wanted it to be abusive to everybody. He was getting a thrill out of hurting people through that whole trial. And I find that disgusting that should be allowed. But she did control herself. And I don't know how she did it. I don't think I could do the same. So, and here's another story, which I think is fascinating about what people go through. And then I'll go to Delphi and Idaho. But I want to bring this one up first before I go there. This is a woman from my area. She's from Baltimore, Maryland. And people don't think about this kind of thing that happens. She is a retired Baltimore crime scene technician. I never even thought of this myself, because recently the prosecution for the Andres and Carter case tried to subpoena me to testify. I managed to get out of it, but I also didn't get anywhere near the courtroom because I was in Maryland and she was in Virginia. The case was in Virginia. And if I went to the courtroom to see the trial, which I wanted to see because I've been involved in this case for over 2 decades, if I arrived there, what they could do to me was subpoena me right outside the courtroom door, and then not even necessarily use me, but refuse to allow me entrance to the courtroom. And I'd have to sit outside day after day after day. And for the whole trial, I'd have to come early in the morning, and then I have to sit there for 8 hours or whatever, and then go home with nothing happening. Yeah, that's what they can do to you. So there's a lot of unfairness that really goes around with witnesses, and we don't consider this a lot. We think, oh, this, No, oh, look, the jury's just there. The jury is forced, almost imprisoned there. So are the witnesses. And maybe the big experts don't mind because they're being paid a whole lot of money. But if you're a regular human being, yeah, you don't necessarily want to be stuck with that. And sometimes this is why witnesses don't want to get involved. They're like, hey, I don't want to be a witness because once I am a witness, if this guy gets arrested, you know what's going to happen to me. And if you've never been a witness, you don't realize this stuff. So you're like, whoa, they should be a better citizen. And they're like, no. But here's an interesting thing about the appeal process, which again, people don't realize. And I even never thought of this. And I'm like, I'll be darned. Is this another problem with the continual appeal process and the retrials? Listen to this. All right. So this guy comes to this woman's door, 6 a.m. and Walmart's are beating on her door. Sheriff's office, you need to come to the door now. But the homeowner, Nancy Morris, wouldn't come to the door. Not for this deputy or any officer thereafter who came to haul her to court. She's a retired Baltimore police crime scene technician. In 2020, she retired in 2020. And she said she is scarred from her career of documenting evidence and violence and adamant about not participating further in the criminal justice process. About 3 months ago, she was in an identical situation, hunkered down at home, ignoring subpoenas, summoning her to court, an arrest warrant looming to ensure her testimony in a murder trial. She sneaked out August 7th to run an errand. Police pulled her over on Park Heights Avenue, arrested her, and took her to central booking. She was shackled and handcuffed and brought into court to testify. She said, what could I do differently? I probably couldn't go outside because I would have gotten caught the next time. Now, why is this happening? All right. Why is this happening? All right. So let me come down here where it says, she says, I can hardly even go out in a rental car anymore. I can't even go out of my house because they're like hiding everywhere trying to get me. I just don't want that part of the job in my head anymore. It's enough of the killing I see on TV, and I don't try not even to look at the news. It's depressing, all this anxiety. Now, why is it happening? All right. It says this, I don't get paid and I'm retired. She's got to be on call for 2 weeks every time they do this stuff. And then they delay it. So she can't leave town. She can't do other things because I keep delaying the trials over and over and over again. So you're not even sure this is when you're going to do it. So she says, unlike the double murder trial she was arrested for in August, this for not being a willing witness and testifying. She already had testified in the 2017 homicide case. Prosecutors needed her for her in November. All right. So what had happened was they convicted him. All right. But then he appealed. The Maryland Court of Special Appeals reversed White's conviction. This is a guy named Tyrone White, and ordered a new trial in light of a ruling in another appeals case about jury selection. His retrial began on November 4th, and that's when they went after her again. So that's the problem. She said, this is what she did. All right. She is only a technician who bagged and submitted the leather jacket to evidence. That was it. Now, what happens is she had the jacket of what she had put everything in. It wasn't there. They couldn't find it. What she had processed was important to the state's case because it tested positive for White's DNA. This is a leather jacket. It was located alongside a box of ammunition, so on and so forth. Now, what she was saying was, why can't they just play what I said, the video during the first trial? I already went to a trial. I already testified, and there's a video of it. Show the video. But to play Morse's recorded testimony, they had to find she was legally unavailable. There you go. So now, since she's living in town, now she's available. So she gets pulled in and she gets pulled in. And every time somebody appeals something, she can get pulled in again. Now, and that's because it says here in the 6th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the defendant has a right to confront witnesses against them. And she's part of the police team. So she's got to supposedly do this. But she has gotten to the point where she's, with all the appeals going through, that she can't get away. She says, I'm a 64-year-old woman getting ready to get my Medicare in a couple months, and I'm running around like some little kid hiding in my own house. This is not how I should be living. I want to sit in my recliner like an old woman and look at TV for a few hours, not peeping out the window and covering the curtains up and keeping quiet in the house. She says she doesn't want to wait to find out what will happen next time she's needed in court. Instead, the lifelong Baltimore resident says she's going to move out of state so she can be legally unavailable as much as possible. Fascinating, just fascinating. I mean, I'm like, wow, it never ends. So if you ever testify in a case and there's an appeal, you can testify again and again. And if you've worked a lot of cases, people don't realize this. When you're doing what this woman did, which is just basically packaging up stuff, evidence technician, you know how many cases she's probably been through in her lifetime? And the way appeals work these days, you can appeal so many times and then you get all these new retrials. She could be in court the rest of her life. Like every couple times a year, she could be forced to be back in court again, and it will never end. Because if you worked in the for 30 years as evidence tech, that's a whole hell of a lot of cases. And the way the justice system works is it goes on and on and on forever. So, I never thought about that. I thought, oh my gosh, it never ends. It never ends. I worked on the Anderson Cotta case when I was, they wanted me to testify. I worked on that over 2 decades ago. And they found me. So it's very, very frustrating. Very frustrating. So I agree with that. Criminal Minds was torture porn. Yeah. I may do a whole thing someday about torture porn because I saw my one and only torture porn when I was probably 24. And that was the movie Wes Craven's Last House on the Left. Never has gone out of my mind because I had no idea that's what it was when I went into the theater. And I thought it was one of the most horrific things I've ever seen in my life because it's basically a snuff film. It was done so it was almost not fancy enough. So it was almost looked like a granny home movie. It looked very real and it was horrifying. And I don't see any point in any show showing that kind of stuff. I don't want to watch people be murdered. I mean, a police procedural is fine. They find the person murdered. I don't want to see it happening. So yeah, I objected to Criminal Minds for many reasons, but that reason as well. So you saw that movie, Andini? I never forgiven Wes Craven for that and anything else he's ever done. Don't like you. I'm one of those people. Don't like you. Do I think you might be a psychopath? Because anybody who can make this kind of garbage, put the actors and actresses through this garbage, and then put it out to the public so they can see this garbage. Yeah. Okay. And who's the other character? The one who does other torture porn movies. He's famous for it. Same thing. It's like a bunch of sick people. Sick people. Yeah. It damaged me. Yeah. And I know it's funny, for all the cases I've worked, that film had a horrifying effect on me. It's been over 40 years. I can still remember the stupid film. I can remember pieces of, it's like I watched somebody be murdered. It was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. All right. I want to get to now my concerns recently about Delphi and Idaho, those two crimes, because of what I see going on and people not understanding how things work. And also then, okay, let me get to it. First, I want to talk about what Greg McCrary said. Greg McCrary is a retired FBI profiler. He was on News Nation. I was invited on News Nation. I've worked with Ashley before, but I refused to do television news anymore. They asked me to come on. I said no. They had Ken Maines on. I think they didn't like what he was saying. He learned something new about being on these shows. And then we had Greg McCrary. So here's the segment things that Greg McCrary said, this is printed. I'm assuming it's not edited, but I couldn't be sure of that. But I thought what he said two things which are very, very important. All right. In the Idaho case, he said, sources told News Nation on Sunday. Sources. First of all, I hate the term sources. I'm always of the opinion, if you're the source, you should be able to put your name on it. I don't like behind the scene dribble. You either admit you said this or just don't say it at all. And I don't think the news media should report sources. I've always been against that. It just drives me crazy. If the police said it, if somebody from the police department said it, well, they should come out and just do a press conference. They shouldn't be leaking crap to the media. I don't know that it's the police department. Was it one of the parents? We know that Kaylee's father's been very vocal in the press. Is this who they're referring to? Sources. Anyway, University of Idaho stabbing victim Kaylee Gonzalez. Injuries were significantly more brutal than those of her best friend Madison Mogan. Sorry. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm going to state that right here. But I like what McCrary says. Former FBI profiler Greg McCrary says it's important that people, this is the great statement, don't overinterpret the information. And this I see happening in both the Delphi case and the Idaho case. Overinterpreting information, taking one piece of information and blowing it up out of proportion. We see this happening all over the place in Delphi for 5 years. They took, where the girl's body was found, and they blew that up. And then they took the catfishing thing and blew that up. And then they were pointing fingers for 5 years. And then there were certain true crime channels who would have put out information they probably shouldn't have put out in large quantity. And then they had people, friends or neighbors or this and that coming on their shows and giving their thoughts. And they present them as if they're telling facts. They're not telling facts. This is somebody, you don't even know who this person's a big fat liar. But they're on there going, this guy did this and this guy did that. And I thought that he used to look through his back and he used to do that, whatever they make up, we don't know if it's true. And then the people who overinterpret things start grabbing all these little bits, these little crumbs, and they start building a big, huge crumb house out of it. And then they say that, so I know, then they say, he did it. Not this person might be a good person of interest, but he did it. And then they say he did it and he did it and he did it and he did it until they find out he didn't do it. Stop that. And the channels who put out massive amounts of information who are doing that, stop it. One recently just did that. If you're looking at the Delphi case, when I did my original explanation about how profile the case, not that I was not doing a profile of the killer. I was showing how the police would be looking at the different avenues. I'd stated 3 avenues. One was a stalker, which I didn't find overly convincing because usually stalkers just keep stalking one person and then just kill that one person. They want to be connected to that one person, their face and the person they're stalking's face. They want those in the newspaper like this. It's like a love affair for them. So I don't find this to be a stalker crime. I also pointed out 2 other avenues. I said that the theory that somebody came in to kill all 4, that would be more likely an incel committing a mass murder. I said it could be a serial killer, but nobody was raped. And so I don't think it's a Ted Bundy or a Danny Rowling thing. It just doesn't make sense to me. It makes more sense it would be an incel killing off everybody and all the girls in the house and one guy who wasn't supposed to be there, who knew the house and who was aware of the girls and was just frustrated by not necessarily just one, but all of them, making his mass murder point. That was another theory I had. And the third theory was it was an ex of somebody, and that would be a disgruntled ex-boyfriend. And of course, at that point in time, Kaylee's boyfriend, Jack, was clearly an ex, and she had made phone calls to him prior to the murder. So I pointed out that there were a number of reasons why the police would have to look at him as a person of interest, not that he's guilty. Not that he's guilty. And this is where I look at McCrary's thing. Don't overinterpret the information. So just because he's her ex-boyfriend doesn't mean he did it. I said there's a number of reasons why you have to look at him. I don't know that he has an alibi. I haven't seen that come up. They did share the dog. The dog lived. Is an ex-boyfriend. That's the reason. But don't overinterpret it. Don't say, well, that means he did it. Doesn't mean he did it. He could be the nicest guy on the planet. I don't know. I'm not on the inside of the investigation to say, oh, wait a minute. Now there's 10 more pieces linking this guy. and therefore we're going to focus on him as the suspect. I don't have that kind of info at all. So I'm not going to do that because I just don't flip and know. So I pointed him out as an avenue of investigation, not as a person who particularly did something. So because I'm not, over interpreting evidence. These are things to look at. But now what I just saw happening recently, somebody let me know that, oh, by the way, that the guy out by the food truck, which people call creepy guy. I'm not going to give his name because he's just one of the many people who were out at the food truck, lived in the area, and a student. And I don't know that he did a damn thing. As far as I know, he could have just been out there like every other student, hanging out, chatting a little bit. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe the police know more. Maybe they would assume they did check him out because he was there at the time the girls were there. Could he be an incel guy? I don't know. Now I've seen a whole lot of information just came out on the internet. I was led to a show on YouTube, which appalled me because it was already up to like 160,000 views when I looked at it. It's probably over 200,000 now. And they went and put up a list of things about this guy. All rumors, mind you, rumor after rumor after rumor after rumor, and some crazy rumors, let me tell you. And I've even heard more crazy rumors about the guy. And people just, all the comments, he did it, he did it, he did it, he did it. First of all, I do not know that any of those rumors are true. I don't know if they're exaggerated. I don't know if they're misinterpreted. We don't know. That didn't come from the police. If it doesn't come straight from the police or it's just 100% obvious, it's rumors. And it doesn't mean that person committed the crime. And I don't know whether he was cleared or not. There's some story that in the beginning that they seemed like they cleared him, but I don't know what cleared means because Fox came out and they had the police chief on and he said some stuff. And then while he wasn't on camera, they said that he also said that some people who are cleared might not be cleared after all, or later they'll be uncleared. I don't even know if he said that because that's coming from the Fox reporter, not from his. I didn't hear it from his mouth because they had done an edited thing, which is why I won't do the TV crap. And which is why I wish that police chief hadn't done that. He did a sit down with Fox News. I don't think he should have done that with any news station. I think you stick with press conferences so that you control what comes out and you don't have this stuff edited. You don't end up having people ask you questions you can't answer. You just come out and you do your really straightforward press conference that you want the public to know. Now we're just more confused because he came out and said things and then Fox said things and I don't know which is true. I don't. So I don't like that. And so we have information coming out that gets misinterpreted and overinterpreted. So McCrary says, don't overinterpret the information. McCrary highlighted a case that he worked on where one victim had been subjected to the most violence. But it turned out that the victim had just put up the most resistance. So this is very true. So just because one of the, and I've said this from the beginning, just if any of the victims showed that they more violence to them, it just simply might mean that the others were asleep and got attacked, and that one woke up as they were being attacked and fought back. It doesn't mean they were the target. Now the police have to examine everything to see whether there was one that appears to be the target. But we don't know from the outside, and we should stop overinterpreting that and saying, oh, see, therefore that person was the target. We do not know. Next. It's important not to get tunnel vision on a given hypothesis. Absolutely. And this is what I've been saying over and over again. Profiling is not about saying, absolutely, he did it. It is analyzing the evidence and building from that evidence avenues of investigation. Some may be better avenues than others, but you don't get tunnel vision and say, oh, well, clearly this guy did it. No. Or clearly it's this kind of crime. No. You go and you put them in order, perhaps. I've done that in many cases. I say, look, I'm going to say, I've had some cases where I'm like, look, I got to say, there's like 20 pieces of evidence that support that this is the right avenue of investigation. This is the top person that should be your top suspect. But I'm not going to say you shouldn't take a look at this and you shouldn't take a look at this. Don't get total tunnel vision because you don't want to miss something. So, yeah. So it's important not to get tunnel vision on a given hypothesis. It's important to have multiple competing hypotheses. Yes. And then let the evidence sort that out and support one, maybe dismiss the other. You have to be careful. This is correct. So I'm in agreement with Greg McCrary on this, totally on all of his statements. That is absolutely accurate. And this is why people need to stand down, especially people doing these channels that every flipping day they do another thing on this case and it's another piece of gossip. And I'm sorry, if you've got 40 videos in a row full of this person said that and this person said this, I don't recommend your channel. Won't do it because you're just spreading gossip and you're not analyzing the case. You're just spreading gossip and you're letting people jump on board and spread that gossip. And it just gets out of hand. I'm not saying we can't talk about things. I'm here to talk about things, but you got to be a little bit reasonable. And it's not reasonable to spread 50 different pieces of gossip and you don't even know where the crap came from. You just don't know. And you don't know the circumstances and all of this kind of things. I mean, I've had so many lies told about me in my, boy, have I had lies told about me. And people are believing them. I see them on other channels where people have come up and said, oh, that Pat Brown. Some of my haters have gone to other channels to the comment section to trash me. And they're putting up straight out lies. And, I'm not going to sit there. Obviously, I'm not going to go to those channels and defend myself in the comment section. But people reading that, and the person who has the channel might say, hey, I think that might be true. They don't know if it's true. Unless you do the research, you won't find out whether it's true or not. But there's a lot of lies that are spread. And really bad ones. We're not talking about something, oh, it was a mistake because like I was accused of saying that the boyfriend Jack, the ex-boyfriend Jack, was 26 when he was 21. Sorry, guys. I went to about 20 different websites, major news websites, and it all said 26. So what can I say? I went to Intellius and ran his name and didn't come back with his name on Intellius, which is I use to find out, where people live and they're close to hopefully get their ages. I tried to run any kind of check I could. I couldn't come up with anything. And so every place said 26. So I had to go with it. But apparently he's 21. That's now what I hear. And I can't even prove that. So there are times you're going to be mistaken. Your information is going to be incorrect. But you can at least just not spread a whole bunch of crazy rumors and put them up there and then go, oh, by the way, they might just be rumors. Well, then if you have no clue, don't put them up. Not that kind of stuff, very inflammatory stuff I've seen about the food truck guy. Unbelievably inflammatory. Now, hey, he could turn out to be the guy who did it. He could. And those rumors could be true. I do not know, but I'm not going to spread those rumors. And I'm not going to say this guy did it because I don't know if any of it has any validity at all. He might just be a guy that's hanging around. Is it an avenue of investigation? Of course it is. That's why I pointed it out. But what's going on the internet is insane. So I just wanted to point that out because that was really bugging me. Let me see if I have anything more I wanted to say about that. So I'm not going to go further with that. That's basically. I did want to respond to Molly. Molly had a good question that she asked about. Let me find it. It was a question about from the Delphi case because at one point in time, let me find it. Okay. Nope, that's not it. Hold on. Let me find it. Where did it go? Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Oh, here we go. Okay. So the question was this. Pat, I was wondering if you had any cases that involve fingerprints or DNA on spent or unspent cartridges. I do not remember any of those, Molly. No. And I might be incorrect. I've worked on a lot of cases and I've reported on a lot of cases, and I could go through my files and maybe go, oh, here, this one had that, but my memory doesn't take me back that far. The sheriff in the Delphi case said they have both DNA and smudge prints. And then this Lieutenant Tom Spivey talked on Jim Wagner's YouTube channel on Sunday, and afterwards said there should be a thumbprint on the primer end of the cartridge from loading the clip for the gun. All right. To answer that question, when you're putting, when you're putting things, theoretically, you're taking a cartridge and you're putting it in there and you're doing a lot of this thing. However, here's something that is a pretty good information on what are the chances. Okay. And by the way, there was never any proof that there was DNA at the scene, but whose DNA? Could have been the girl's DNA. It could have been a police officer who touched something, his DNA. It could have been some touched DNA that's totally meaningless. So that was one thing that was said. And then a fingerprint that might have been smudged. What fingerprint where? Whose fingerprint? So this does not tell us that that evidence was at the scene. Do I hope there's DNA evidence that would link back to the killer? Yes. Do I wish there was a fingerprint that would link back to the killer? Yes. Was there? Not that I know of, but maybe there is. Maybe in discovery, when they're doing the Richard Allen discovery part, and when it gets to court, there will be that information. And you go, oh, wow, that's great. There was more information. I do not know. But here is what I want to read to you about the chances of this thing. Cartridge cases are useful for connecting cases and providing investigative leads into the caliber and type of firearm. Oh, by the way, I want to read this. I'm sorry. This is first before I go to the second part, because people keep asking me about how good is that tool mark identification thing they did. It could, a lot of people say, oh, it's garbage. Cartridge cases are useful for connecting cases and providing investigative leads into the caliber and type of firearm. Absolutely true. There was a 40 millimeter. So it would have to fit something that takes a 40 millimeter. So that's important. Cartridge cases from pistols, not revolvers, not rifles or shotgun shells. So a lot of people say, oh, it could have come from a hunter. Not if they're using rifles and shotguns, probably not. They are eligible for entry. The cartridge cases from pistols are eligible for entry into the National Integrated Ballistic Information System, or NIBIN. That was actually listed in the probable cause thing. The computerized microscope captures images of the firing pin impression, breech face, and ejector marks, which are all unique to a specific firearm. The photos are uploaded to a database where they are stored and searched against previously entered cartridge cases from crimes or test fires. The best matches are generated and analyzed by a criminalist. That's where the subjectiveness comes in. If a match is suspected using NIBIN, it must be confirmed with a match using a comparison microscope. So now this was an unfired one, cycled through. You can make of that what you will, but that's basically how it's done. So does it have value in a court of law? Yes, it does. And it all comes down to whether the experts are believable and how good their comparisons were, that you could even see from photos going, that doesn't look like the same. It all depends. Now, as to the DNA and fingerprint on a cartridge, there is an identifiable latent print recovery in approximately 13% for firearms, only 13%. Now, that's for the firearm itself. Ammunition fares even worse, with a 0 recovery rate in some agencies. From these results, it seems that ammunition is better suited for DNA analysis than latent print examination. Sometimes it's the material that it's made out of, it just doesn't pick up prints well. And especially maybe, and I don't know, he's talking about the end of it. I don't even understand that, because usually there's some kind of little letters all printed in the end. I don't even know how you get a fingerprint on that. It would be the side that would be better, because that's flat. So it would seem that ammunition is better suited for DNA analysis rather than latent print examination, although the rate for DNA might not be significantly higher. A study completed at the Denver Police Department found a 0 success rate for spent ammunition and a 0.25 success rate from live cartridges, 0.25%. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, 0.25%. So 25, 1/4 of 1%. 1 out of 400, am I doing that math right, might have some DNA. Eesh, that's really low. So to answer your question, Molly, not really useful. They're trying. They keep trying to improve these kind of, tests so they can have better luck in the future. So not so good right now. So I don't feel like they're going to get that kind of thing off of the bullet or the cartridge that they found. I think that's going to be more a case of matching the gun and then all the other evidence that they have, which we hope there's all the other evidence, because that's what's going to be needed in totality. They're going to need a lot of evidence to convict Richard Allen, and we'll find that out in court, whether there's enough where you go, that's the guy, and that the jury will find him guilty as well. Will the police collect DNA from everyone that was around the girls at night? I don't know. I assume they're going to collect DNA from anybody they feel is necessary to collect DNA from. I don't know. Oh, Lord. Now the gossip is one of the fathers did it. Yeah, they've gone. Yeah. Again, would that be an avenue of investigation? It could be. There are fathers out there who aren't. They're psychopaths. There are fathers out there who are dangerous. There are mothers out there who are dangerous. Do they have to look at the parents of the victims? Yes, they do. I wouldn't say they shouldn't look at them. They should look at them. They should get their alibis, find out if they have any issues with, you never know. But you don't have to go on the internet and start gossiping about the parents and then saying, oh, this one said that, and therefore, it's him, it's clearly him. The problem is there are people coming out there and sending the gossip and then saying that's who did it. That's just really very annoying. Very annoying and very damaging as well. I mean, it's hard enough to talk about these cases without saying something about the people who are involved. I know I got a lot of flack about Jack. It was hard not to talk about Jack because he was the ex-boyfriend of, Kaylee. And he was going to, his information was out there, is going to be out there. I have not put any more information out about the guy. I have seen some more information about him. I'm not going to go out and speculate on, again, the gossip. I'm not going to do it because I don't know that he has anything to do with this crime at all, except for being maybe an unlucky schmuck as an ex-boyfriend. But that's what the police have to, investigate. I, as far as everybody's alibis go, I don't know what they are. I don't know who has one and who doesn't have one and who has one that's solid. Just don't know. Speaking of, was there anything in Kaylee's behavior that may have provoked the crime? I don't know. I'm not going to gossip about her behavior. This is what goes on. I mean, if I'm on the investigative team, I will be interviewing people and I will be weighing what I think what they're saying has any validity or not. But I'm going to guarantee you, somebody out there is going to say she did this and she did that and she did this, and that obviously her relationship with a boyfriend could be an issue. Obviously her I don't know, her behavior at a club could be an issue. But again, is it her behavior or is it somebody's perception of her behavior? And I am not going to take a bunch of gossip out there and say, oh, see, she shouldn't have done that. There's a lot of things that are just misinterpreted. And I won't bring up one because this has been on the internet, and that is the photos of the two girls together. Sorry, just blanking on. Geez, hold on a second. Madison, that's it, Kaylee and Madison. They're very, very best friends from forever. And they got a lot of these cute little photos where they're like hugging each other and leaning against each other and kissing each other. And so people say, well, maybe. And they were supposedly in bed together. That has come out. If a bed is big enough, by the way, I don't necessarily talking about twin bed, but people get drunk, they just fall out laughing and joking and go to sleep. I have been in bed with a girlfriend of mine, and it wasn't sexual. We traveled, we were in the same bed. I've been in the same bed with my sister. Wasn't incestuous, People do that. Women do that especially. I don't know about guys so much, but women a lot of times. And also, one thing I did do, because I've been hearing about this, is I went through some of the Facebook pages with all the different girls, all the friends of, Kaylee Madison's friends and the sisters and guess what? You wouldn't believe how many of the pictures are very similar. Two girls going, two girls going. It's a popular thing right now. Very super popular. That girls take these cute pictures. I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't have a cell phone. You had to take pictures with a camera, and it cost you a fortune. And they were crappy pictures too. They were black and white. I mean, all you see is a few family members standing stiffly next to each other. Half the time it didn't smile. So it's like, we didn't. I don't have any pictures of any friend I grew up with. But that was a different time. Now I take a ton of pictures with my cell phone. And I've taken pictures with friends, not quite as girly as college students, but that college students like to take these cute little sweet, and some people would say sexy pictures. Attractive girls just, they're putting their heads together and, they're like doing this next to each other and one behind the other. It's totally commonplace. So now if you take this piece of information and then people run with it. Now, if you were an investigator, would you look into the possibility that the girls could have had a relationship that was more than friendship? Of course, you can look into it. You can look into that as a trigger for somebody else. You can do that. But for everybody out here to say, well, what was their behavior? Did they do this? Did they do that? Maybe they were in this. And oh gosh, yes, they were definitely in a relationship. And that definitely caused, we have no clue. We have no clue. And I don't know, and so, and certainly a particular behavior is not going to cause somebody to come and kill 4 people. That person who does that is a psychopath that people didn't recognize as a psychopath. That's why they're still out and about human beings. And you could talk about a straw type of thing that broke the camel's back. That could be the one thing that finally sent them over the edge, because that's in their own mind, not because the person did anything wrong, but in their own mind. They think it's worth, hey, I can say, hey, it's her fault, but it's not her fault. It's just his mind says that because he wants it to be her fault. You see, it's not worth going there. We got to let the police just to try to figure out who did it, just because we don't know one thing about the evidence in that house. We don't know about the order of the killing, who was stabbed first. We don't know anything about the alibis. We don't know anything about anybody's behavior, really. And I'm not going to go with rumors around town for behavior. So, yeah. I'm going to leave that alone because it's not worth doing. Melanie says, a bit off topic, but do you think that Richard Allen may take a plea down the road so court could be avoided? Oh, I don't think so. Either he's innocent and we'll fight for that, or he's guilty and we'll try and think that the defense can get him off. I don't think he's going to take a plea. I really don't. I find that unlikely, very unlikely. Thanks for answering my question. There's been a lot of finger pointing at the victims. They're kids. They're college kids. I mean, and people become victims sometimes due to poor choices. This is very true. I have a case I'm going to talk about, but not tonight. I was going to talk about, but now it's too interesting. I'm going to do a whole separate video on it. And it has to do with poor choices. And it's sad that people make poor choices that put them in positions to be victims, not because what they did deserves being murdered. So, some of college life is very, the drinking, excessive drinking, putting too much stuff on social media, being too, and that provoking somebody who is a whack job. Those things can be behaviors that can cause whack jobs to focus in on you. Doesn't mean that you did anything wrong, but it does bring attention where in the past those avenues didn't exist. When I went to college, hardly anybody drank. That was just not something I knew much about. We didn't know the meaning of shots. I nursed a Tom Collins once, like for a whole night, at a bar, and now people go out and they shot after shot after shot, and they get trash drunk. And there's also drug issues. So you can put yourself in dangerous positions by going on Tinder and meeting people you don't even know who the heck they are, and all kinds of stuff like that. Walking home alone will get you killed, that kind of stuff. It's just so many things you can do that just are dangerous. You don't recognize them as particularly dangerous, or you think, nobody else has gotten killed here recently. Why should I? As far as this goes, they were in their own home. They were in the place they lived. Should they have locked the door? You could say that, but that's the biggest thing you can say. There are so many people in the home, you wouldn't suspect anything like this would happen. It's pretty shocking. That's why everybody is shocked about it, because they think it's, just beyond belief. And it's why it's same thing with the two girls in Delphi. The fact that, they're going out for a nice afternoon, they're going to take a walk, on this cool bridge, and then they end up murdered. It's pretty horrific. And it's something we have trouble fathoming. Now I want to talk about, speaking of this is important to me, as far as how do you know what people are really like? And this is the problem, again, with speculating from a distance. We don't know the person's true personality. But then again, sometimes neither does the family. And I bring this up because there's a number of cases where people say, that these people couldn't have done something. Okay. For example, the Madeleine McCann case. Whether you think that the parents are involved or not involved in what happened to their child, there are people that say, they're doctors. They couldn't have done anything at all. That was incorrect. Well, why? Because they're doctors. And then you have the JonBenet case. They're wealthy people, members, top members of the community. And aside from the beauty pageant stuff, people think there's no way that loving family, there could be anything that went wrong in that family. Can't believe it. So, and then I did one. Let's see. It was the video was on Asia Degree. She was a little girl who supposedly left her house at like 3 a.m. She's what? Now I'm trying to remember, 9. I'm trying to remember the show. And she just, in the middle of a horrible storm, in a cold and freezing night with rain pouring down and a thunderstorm, she supposedly walks out of her house and walks down a highway and disappears into the night and never found again. Her book bag was found, but she was never found. And when I did the video, it's called Asia Degree, so you can find that. Maybe I'll link that one below. The question was, did she leave the house of her own free will, or did something happen in the house? And when you watch the family, your heart just goes out to them. I'm like, they're well-respected people in the community there. They go to a church there. The child is well-liked in school. The parents are supposedly really good parents. There's a whole bunch of relatives right around there supporting the family. Everybody said everything was great. And I'm looking at them and I'm having a hard time thinking anything's wrong with this family. But I also can't figure out why that kid would walk out of their house in the middle of the night. Either she never made it out or she left. And if a child leaves at that young age in the middle of the night to run away from her family, to run to somebody else, something's wrong in the family. So anyway, I wanted to point this out because this is a case that just came up, a really super sad case. And this is a lovely family. Let me find the information here on it. This family. Hold on a second. Where did it go? Hold on. I swear, gosh, I have had the worst problem with things. You know, hold on a second. This is crazy. I've had things disappear off this page, and it's driving me nuts. How did this happen? Hold on. That is crazy. That is crazy. Huh. Okay, hold on a second. I'm going to try to pull something back up here. Because it went missing. All right. Okay, so this is a family from Louisville, Kentucky. Let me put the picture back up again. The wife on the left, she's originally from Kenya, and that's her husband in the middle, and then her two daughters. They were over in Kenya. The picture behind them is her father, who had recently passed away. So they all went as a family to Kenya to say goodbye to the grandfather, essentially. And then they came back to the U.S. And just a little while later, family of 4 found dead in home as a woman's sister reveals chilling details about the last day. Now look at the blue words. Nothing seemed off. The father killed his wife, who he had just given a birthday present to and said, "You're the love of my life." They're very well respected in the community. She's a nurse. The girls are doing well in high school. Everybody seems super happy. This is the sister of the woman, Mary Stanton's sister, and she says, she cannot fathom it, because she says, "I talked to my sister pretty much every day. We shared everything. She was my best friend. Nothing was off. Nothing seemed off at all. Never heard of anything bad." She's totally stunned. And this is the sister, the very, very close sister. And she has no clue that why the husband would kill off his whole family, shoot them all dead, and then commit suicide. So there we have another example of a family that nobody would believe had any trouble in it. But clearly, something was wrong with that man behind the scenes. Something was terribly wrong with him to do that to his wife and his teenage daughters. This is the typical family annihilation, where the husband kills everybody and kills himself. And usually there's a financial component in it. It's usually not that he wants to run off with another woman, because then he just kills a family and he runs away, like the Scott Peterson types, But when they kill the whole family, kill themselves, it's usually some big fat ego blow, that there's some financial thing. But still, what kind of person, because even if things financially a nightmare, shoots the whole family down? Who does that? And supposedly he had never exhibited any of these behaviors before, supposedly. So this is the problem. If the family doesn't even recognize some of these things, who are we on the outside to know what's going on in the mind of certain people in a family? We have cases where children have suffered years of abuse, sexual abuse, from a man, a father, or a stepfather. Everybody thought the guy was the greatest in the world. And you feel like a horrible human being, even considering, oh my God, they might have been doing that behind the scenes. But it happens every day. So I don't know, when it comes down to what kind of person anybody is like. I'm lucky enough to know, even as a profiler, what people are actually like who are close to me, if I don't see them often enough and can't monitor every shred of their behavior. Even families lie to each other about things. They don't want to admit things, even to their sister, who's their best friend. There's some things a lot of parents, a lot of people just don't want to admit. And if my sister's watching this, no, not you. I admit everything to you. You know me way too well. Maybe I shouldn't have admitted everything to you. Blackmail. But, a lot of times there's that something that some people leave out, that they don't want somebody to know. So when I got divorced, I'll say this, when I got divorced, my parents had no clue. And most of my friends had no clue. We were the best couple ever. We were 25 years. everybody thought we were solid. There were a couple of people who knew that there were problems. I'm not going to say whose problems they were. I'm just going to say that the marriage wasn't going that well at the time, and that would be one of my best friends and my sister. They knew. And so when I got separated, they were the ones that weren't surprised. Everybody else was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Those two? It's impossible. They were perfect together, you see. So that's what happens. And so we really don't know from the outside. So that's what people have to always keep in mind. We haven't got a clue. And then sometimes that's one of the things when I was talking about Jack. I said, well, I don't know when I'm in their relationship. And I don't know, the parents absolutely adored Jack. Did they adore Jack because he's the most adorable guy in the world and he's the greatest guy, or because they were blinded? I don't know. I don't know which one it is. I haven't a clue. So we have to keep that in mind, that we don't know. We do not know. Oh, thank you, Carrie. Your Aisha degree show was fascinating. Thank you. That was a really, really bizarre case, and it's very hard to figure out what happened. All I can do there is say, what, as an investigator, what I would look at, as a profiler, what I would look at, and look for more evidence, because it is a very peculiar one. Molly says, Pat, what are your thoughts on Richard Allen saying he was confused at being arrested? I thought it was a strange word to use, maybe outraged. That's a good one, Molly. Is an appropriate word if he's completely innocent. Yeah, I'm not sure how he would be confused. It's pretty obvious. You said you were on the bridge there that day, and you look like bridge guy. I think those are two things that should not be confusing. That you were shocked because although those things were true, you think that I'm innocent. Those things don't add up to me being guilty of anything. I could see him being shocked. Yeah, confused. I don't know that he was confused, or his lawyers were saying he was confused. Confused. Here's what I see when I heard the word confused. Let me try to do this in expressions. Okay, so outrage. People don't like you when you're outraged. Now, shocked. They're like, oh, really? Are you confused? You see? And you see him with his head going, I don't understand it. I think it's a good terminology to use to make people think you're innocently, like you confused as a person who doesn't understand what's going on. Confused as a person who feels very vulnerable to things that they don't understand. Vulnerability, I think, would be the best way to put that. So I don't know whether he actually was confused or his attorneys decided he was confused because it made him look like a vulnerable, innocent man. Don't know. Nina says, I read that he... who says? Who are we talking about here? Oh, okay. Yes, the family in Louisville. This is true. He shot his wife and older daughter repeatedly and the younger girl once. Maybe it's because it's hard to exercise power and control over the older women, or he ran out of bullets. I don't know how many he had in the magazine. Also, whether someone, again, here's where the over analyzing goes. This is what Greg McCurry is talking about. We don't know who the target was even in this. One would theoretically think it would be the wife. Okay, but if he intended to kill the entire family and then himself, he would have gone, who knows who he went after first. He could have gone after the youngest girl first, shot her once, then the second girl saw him shoot the younger one, got up and ran. He had to shoot her a number of times to get her to drop. And then his wife was trying to get out the door and he shot her until the gun ran out of bullets. That's one possibility. The other possibility is he came up and said to his wife, I'm done with you, bang, 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 bang. And then the girls ran and he shot what he ever shot. And who knows how the bullets flew. Don't know. I don't know what the trajectory is and where the holes were in the walls or whether everybody was in their beds. I don't know. I don't know any of that. And so I don't know whether he only intended to kill one it got angry and shot at one, killed one, and then thought, oh crap, I have no choice, and then shot the others, and then figured he was going to go to prison the rest of his life, so he killed himself? Or did he just want to wake up and say, for whatever reasons, my life is, I've lost all my money, or they're about to find out something terrible about me, and my whole family's going to think I'm a terrible person, or then they're going to go on with their lives. Once they get rid of me for whatever reason, I go to jail or I'm thrown out of the family or whatever, then they go on with their lives and talk bad crap about me. So I'm just going to kill everybody and myself. And that's sometimes what a family annihilator does. In other words, he can't have anybody live after him. If he's going to go down, everybody's going to go down with him. But I don't know. We haven't heard one thing about what the cause could be that led this person to decide to annihilate his family. Not a clue on that. Richard Allen seems like he often plays the victim. I don't know. What are we referring to? Is this more gossip on the internet? I don't know anything about him playing a victim anyplace. All I know is he stated he was on the trail. People saw him, and supposedly the bullet has some matching markings. That's all I know. Other than that, I don't know anything, because I guess most of it's on the internet, people saying stuff about Richard Allen now. And I don't know if they're just full of crap. People like to also jump in. You have to understand, people like attention. Oh my God. I used to go to that CVS store. You know what Richard Allen used to do? Do you know that that's true? No. And that's why people ask me if I interview people, would I have people? No, I won't do it. I'm not going to do that kind of stuff. If it comes from the police, comes from a specific report, fine. And if I have to do if I'm doing an investigation, yes, I have to talk to people, and I have to listen to what they have to say and see whether they come across as truthful, or they have any kind of support for what they say, or any kind of validity. Yeah. So try to keep away from a lot of that stuff. And I want to say hello to David. Hi. And you asked me a question, David, and I'm going to give one example of the question you asked me. Because I'm going to look for more. And I think what happens is David asked me this question, if I can find it, because I'm having missing crap today. Let's see, where is it? Hold on. Where is your question, David? I know I had it here waiting for me. I tell you, today is just not my lucky day with this. Hold on. Why am I having problems? Let me look over here. I'm very annoyed with myself. I don't know why things are going missing. Let's see. Where's your message? You had asked, David. I thought it was a really good message, which is why I wanted to address it. And I do have one case I wanted to. Oh, here we go. All right. So David House asked this. Hi, Pat. All right. So he asked this question, and I think it's a really interesting one. I hope your week is going well. Moderately. I was hoping that during tomorrow's show, you might have time to discuss the usefulness or lack thereof of investigative techniques that follow paper and digital trails, such as forensic accounting and computer forensics. I will say this. I work homicide cases in my life. I've never worked, when you talk about forensic accounting, I think we're talking about money trails. That is a whole another thing from what I deal with. And the FBI certainly has a great deal of people working on those kind of financial crimes and things like that. I'm going to say our recent cyber, what's his name? Good Lord. The cryptocurrency guy who just lost billions. And it had a Ponzi scheme going there. And you bet they're going to be looking at the forensic accounting type of things on that. And all the computer forensics there's going to be huge amounts because everything was done on computer. Those are they're very deep and extensive and long haul cases that, thank God, it's not me, because I can't hardly do my bank account. I'm not good at any of that. But yes, especially when you're coming down to cartels, you're coming down to any kind of syndicates, all of those things where the money is transferred from place to place through bank accounts, offshoring, all that kind of stuff. It's way beyond me. So yes, that's used tremendously. And we might point out, it says, it seems like these are being increasingly used in murder investigations, but don't quite get the attention that lab science techniques such as DNA and toxicology receive. I guess they're not as exciting and don't have them on TV shows. And so if we're talking with murder cases, I think, yes, we're seeing computers are coming into very, very important, because people put stuff on Facebook. There's so much coming through your computer now. You can look at what people have been searching for the last years, unless they manage to get rid of their search engines, all their searches completely. And then there's always other ways. Since I do murder, homicide analysis, my search engine stuff that I put in the stuff I put in my searches is pretty creepy. But all of a sudden, if you see certain things that you start seeing, like map searches on Google, it's like, why are they searching these places on Google? This is very useful. Like even for little things, and people forget about little things. Like, let's say you're looking up a place to eat. Now, what you're doing is thinking about shooting your girlfriend, and you know where she lives, but on the way you're hungry. So you look up a restaurant, or the closest McDonald's, and that goes into your searches. And so and your GPS on your car and all this stuff. So, and then there's the cameras from the street. So you've got all these things that go through electronics that can narrow down what a person's thinking, where they're going, the timing of everything. And that is truly becoming extremely, extremely helpful in all of these, a lot of homicide cases. And amazingly, people still do these things not with recognition that there are cameras and there is GPS. They still do it anyway. And sometimes they don't do the smart thing. They amazingly do stupid stuff, which and gets them caught. Thank God. So yes, these are important things. What's going in and out of bank accounts, ATM machines, all of these things. Yes, I think they're being used a lot more, along with, DNA is easiest, because DNA is, DNA is that magic, that's the magic bullet, not so much the one that was found at Delphi, that the attorney insists is magic. But DNA, if you can get somebody's DNA at a scene they shouldn't have been at, that's what the jury likes. That's what they go for. Fingerprints are still pretty good, because it's, generally speaking, your fingerprint shouldn't be there either if there's not a good reason for it. Touch DNA is questionable because that's easily transferred. So that's much iffier. But solid DNA, solid fingerprints, dropping your driver's license, those things really help. The things that the jury can understand without having to understand the totality of the evidence. So when you get something really big, you don't have to waste your time worrying about the circumstantial evidence. Because that's what trips up juries all the time. And that's what defense attorneys focus on to trip up the juries. They will try to say the witnesses are full of crap, the experts are full of crap. And that just because their GPS said this, it didn't mean that. And just because they searched for, chloroform on a computer, like some people whose daughters ended up dead, it doesn't mean that they were going to do that. They can manipulate the minds of the jury. But circumstantial evidence is extremely important. So sometimes if you can put together a whole timeline where you've got the stuff on the computer, and then you've got the GPS, and you've got the cameras, and you've got this, and you've got that, some of that's fabulous. If you look at the recent show I just did on Luca Magnotta, and the show Don't Blank with Cats, that had a huge trail, that the people who were upset about him killing cats and putting up that video were able to pinpoint where he lived in the world because of the scenery behind him in shots. So they were able to then go on Google Earth and look at all the different streets, and see the way the streets looked and the houses looked and the lights looked. So they were able to figure things out. It was amazing. So yes, it's used a lot. But yes, it's one of those things that gets a little trickier in a court because people have to understand it. And then that's where the civilian jury that I object to has problems. Let me tell you one case, though, because I thought this was interesting. Thought of you with David when I saw this one. The murder of Julie Snodgrass. This was the breakthrough case in cyber crime fighting. It's 30 years ago. There was a killing on a U.S. Air Force base. Let's see if I can find the picture. See if I actually have the picture. Oh, yes, I have a picture. Look at that. There we go. There's the woman and the baby, and there's the husband. All right. They were having marital problems, unbeknownst to their friends. You see how that goes? Unbeknownst to their friends. On the events of night of February 25th that year, which was 1991, which showed just how far Joseph was willing to get Julie, his wife, out of his life once and for all. All right. So what happened here? On the morning of February 26th, Filipino police alerted the Air Force Office of Special Investigations to the discovery of a woman's body on a dirt road outside the designated Liberty area for the air base. She was in a pickup truck and had been stabbed more than 40 times. The dead woman was identified as Julie Snodgrass, and at first, investigators suspected a political motive. So here you start down trying to figure out why would this woman be stabbed 40 times, and she's an American. And she's in the Philippines. So they're thinking maybe there's something anti-American. Reasonable thought. However, it soon became clear that Julie Snodgrass's killer was a lot closer to home. Evidence was undiscovered during the course of the investigation to suggest that Joseph Snodgrass was having an affair with his housekeeper, a Filipino native named Lucy. So he was getting it on with Lucy. Anyway, he had sought her help to kill his wife so that the pair could be together. They would move then to the U.S. and live on the $400,000 life insurance policy he had recently taken out on his wife. If you're going to take out a policy, you got to wait a couple of years. Don't do her in the next couple of months. Looks bad. Lured by the prospect of a new life in America, Lucy convinced her two uncles and a further, still unidentified person to act as hitmen in exchange for $150 in cash. Wow, that's cheap. But in the Philippines at the time, it was a lot of money. Okay, so all Joseph Snodgrass had to do to ensure his plan worked was persuade his wife to run an errand for him. He asked her to leave the Air Force Base to meet an informant he knew late at night. So I'm going to say right here, Julie, you must have been controlled by this man for a long time because you didn't know he was having an affair with a housekeeper, and he's asking you in the middle of the night to go meet an informant, and you went and did it. Oh, Lord, yeah. Meaning she would be exposed and alone on a dirt road and leaving Lucy's uncles plenty of time to carry out the murder undetected. All right, so they checked his work computer. They found damning evidence. Again, don't use computers if you're going to do a murder, including a letter in which he asked his mistress to help him kill his wife. Let me try to understand this. You're having sex with a mistress. And you couldn't, while you're doing that, go, psst, can you kill my wife? Can you get your uncles? You would send her a letter? What the, moron or what? and Lucy, you're not too bright either. Anyway, nobody was bright. So including a letter in which he asked his mistress to help him kill his wife and paperwork relating to a significant change in his life insurance policy. So, together, those are pretty good circumstantial pieces of evidence. All right. However, while they quizzed a cornered Joseph Snodgrass in his Air Force Base office to ensure the data was his, because it was on the computer, and somebody else here will be the defense attorney. Somebody else wrote that to frame you, right? Quick as a flash, he did the unthinkable. He grabbed the 5.25-inch floppy disk. If you remember floppy disks, they were a square thing, right? On which the incriminating evidence was stored, and he cut them into tiny pieces using a pair of picking shears he had concealed on his person. Embarrassed investigators checked with the FBI and the manufacturers of the floppy disk, but they were told no protocol existed at the time that would allow the data to be extracted from such badly damaged technology. So they said it would take millions of dollars and years of research. So they're having some issues here. So then they decided they would just try to do it themselves. They tried a soldering iron and they put it in a tube and they were trying to, melt it together, but iron them, and that didn't go well. So they didn't do that. Then Jim Christie explained in an interview with Forensic Files that his team then spliced these vital pieces into another disk in order to create a whole circle that a disk drive could then read. All right. And that didn't work. So then this Deputy Cutchins guy said, thinking about Post-it notes, said, wait a minute, if I just get some low-tack type of Scotch tape and hold the pieces together underneath without adding to the thickness, maybe that'll work. And it did. To their amazement, the primitive technique worked. Having spent just $130, they were able to retrieve more than 3/4 of the data on the apparently destroyed disk. So the letter stored on it to the housekeeper revealed he had increased his wife's insurance policies and hired hitmen to kill her. Together with Lucy's confession, the digital footprint linked him irrevocably to the killers. So he's in life in prison. So I just think that was a really cool early issue with a floppy disk. And again, you got to wonder about stupidity of criminals. Why would you have this information around? In the shows how somebody gives you a letter, and as soon as you read it, you light it on fire, and then, you want to make sure the pieces are crumbled too, because in some of these shows, they manage to take some of the burnt, charred pieces, and they still manage to put it together. You just burn it, you crush it, you put it in the toilet, and you flush it. Get rid of it. Why would you keep around a floppy disk with the information on it? Why would you even put it on the computer to begin with? Why do you need to have a letter? Why do you need anything like this? A stupid criminal. Luckily, they were able to put him away. Otherwise, without the floppy, I don't know if they could have gotten the confession from Lucy, and they might have gotten away with it. And Lucy would be living happily ever after with him in the U.S. until he got tired of her. And then maybe that would be another one down. Oh, you're welcome, David. I'm going to be trying to look into some more of these interesting methodologies that they use, because it's interesting how many avenues, how many techniques can go into things. And today there are just so many more because of electronics that are just pretty cool. They're really pretty cool. And gosh knows we need those. Yep, it was pretty amazing. Yeah, they don't catch the smart ones. Yeah, and sometimes the smart ones, the funny thing about the smart ones is they're the ones that don't do anything fancy. Like, I've seen some super fancy methodologies to kill people, people that are close to you. And there's so many steps that they go through to commit the crime that any one of those steps can trip them up. Would they be much better off doing something extraordinarily simple? Because that gets more tricky when you just don't know somebody down the steps, works really good. Person tripped. Hopefully none of my relatives will be down the steps in the near future. We have dogs. They're going to blame it on the dogs. The dogs tripped Grandma. Tripped her right down the steps. I'm saying that right here now in case the dogs trip me down the steps. Call the police. But usually the simple way is the way people get away with it, and the other way is pure luck. They just get lucky. Maybe it's the weather they get away with. There's no witnesses. The cameras fail. Who knows what it is? But sometimes there are. Somebody asked once, can there be too much information at a crime scene? And that's very, very true. That you could have, like, if a person's killed in a public area, let's say, for example, homeless people, they're killed underneath an overpass, and that's where all the other homeless people are, and that's where like 30 different people come and bring carts full of stuff from Goodwill, and then there's people, good-hearted people coming and handing out coats to them. So, and then you have drinking, you have drugs, you have sex. You got so much evidence underneath that overpass. You're like, oh, who killed this guy? I don't know. Unless the guy's still holding the knife in his hand and has blood all over him. And even then he'll say, I just found the knife. Then you have to try to prove that he didn't just find the knife. Can get very, very tricky. So sometimes there's other issues that interfere with the ability to prove things, even though you think it would be simple, but it's simply not. A couple of things I wanted to talk about would be let me find it. This would be the UPS driver that kidnapped the little girl. And this one really hit home for me. This is the guy. First, I want to point out this guy. His name is, hold on a second, let me find out his name. Tanner Horner. Let me get it straight. Yes, Tanner Horner. He's the suspect. in the murder of Athena Strand. And this is the little girl. This is the little girl on the left. That's Athena Strand. And one thing I want to point out, you see the picture of him on the right? Now he looks like a scary creature, right? You go, oh my God, that guy looks like a killer. But then you look at this and you go, come on, that guy couldn't kill anybody. He didn't look like a child killer. And that's one of the important things about the problem of when you're looking at somebody's face. I've seen this with Idaho. Oh, I looked at his face and he looks definitely a killer. Or, oh, he looks too wimpy. He couldn't have killed. All this kind of nonsense stuff. It's like we can't see things from a distance, what the person is really built like, what kind of strength they have, whether their face is a sweetheart face or not a sweetheart face. I mean, if somebody's in a bad mood, they look mean. And if they're in a good mood, they look happy. So, if here the guy looks pleasant enough, he's like, hey, this could be your little nephew or something, and over here you think, oh my God, the guy's a killer. Anyway, this is the little girl, and that's her little sister. Super, super sad because the little sister, when the older girl went, they were going to be separated for a period of time. Mom was saying, "Oh, don't worry, she'll be back soon." And the little sister was crying because she just adores her big sister. Well, Mommy wasn't right. She didn't. Her big sister didn't come back. So pretty horrific. Let me tell you the story. Authorities on Friday arrested Tanner Lynn Horner, a FedEx contract driver. And he said he is accused of kidnapping and killing a 7-year-old North Texas girl after making a delivery to her home. He's 31-year-old, doesn't appear to have a criminal record. Okay. She went missing, and her body was found a couple days later, and it was stated that she was killed within an hour of being kidnapped. And I pointed this out over and over again. When little kids are kidnapped, it is not to go into a sex ring. It is from a serial killer, a child sex predator, and they will be dead within an hour or a few hours. That's it. Nobody keeps a little kid alive because they're a pain in the butt. They whine and cry. And so parents love their little kids, but people who are not their family and not, loving their kids because it's my granddaughter, it's my, my grandson or whatever. It's somebody else's kid. They're annoying. And so a child sex predator wants to use them and abuse them. He doesn't want to keep them around as pets. You know what I mean? That's just not fun for them. Older girls, older boys, teenagers, they will keep in a basement for a long time because they can get them to cooperate. They can get them to stop crying and cooperate, doing sex acts, cooking, playing games, all kinds of things they can get them to do. You don't have that luck with a little kid. A little kid is just a pain in the butt. And you can't leave them alone all day long because they, just like teens you can. It's hard to do that with little kids. So they're usually dead within an hour or two. So, and this sex ring thing is ridiculous. In this country, little children aren't kidnapped off the street to go into sex rings. There's a lot of kids who have druggy parents and messed up families who will allow people to abuse their children for a few bucks. And maybe they abuse them themselves. The child sex ring stuff, especially small children, is usually in other countries that have severe poverty and poor police forces. And this is not a big thing in the U.S. So normally when a kid goes missing like that, it is a child sex predator and serial killer. And the girl was dead within an hour, which is horrifying. One of the scary things about this, so I looked this up about the delivery system to the houses these days, because our family's kind of big on Amazon. So we have a lot of Amazon deliveries. We have dogs and cameras and all that stuff, but still it's a little scary sometimes when you think, who's coming up my driveway? And what if somebody's out there, a little child's out there, somebody can be grabbed. And the fact is, there's so many in neighborhoods, not just our house, but everybody's house. You see them. I see them stopping everywhere. So it's Amazon, it's UPS, it's USPS, and it's FedEx. So you have all of these trucks running around, along with all the food delivery services as well. So they're running around delivering stuff. So where we used to have a quiet street, and the only people coming up and down that street were people who lived there, or people who are visiting the people that live there. Now we have a huge number of other people's vehicles, and they're not always marked vehicles. Some of these are just people's cars. I remember one time I ordered something, one of the food delivery services, and that thing showed up, And a person coming up my drive was blaring music. He gets out, his girlfriend is in the car, and she's listening to the music and she's doing all this stuff. And this guy comes up and thinking, dang, don't send this guy to my house, because he's, it's just, he doesn't look safe. He's got, and probably somebody they hired a couple days ago, because, and this was, by the way, it wasn't one of the bigger services. It was, I forgot what I used to call that one. I used to call it a terrible name, because they were so bad. Their delivery people were literally people off a bus stop they just hired like 5 minutes ago with no checking. So you get, some of them have checks, but a lot of them do not. And with the number of people they need, they cannot check everybody. Everybody thinks, oh, they went through some big, long criminal check. No, they didn't. So there's a lot of people getting these jobs, and they're just running up and down all the neighborhood streets now. So we're going to see, I think, an increase in this kind of crime, and that's very frightening. And these guys know the neighborhoods. That's the thing too. They can start, they're there for a legitimate purpose, and they can start seeing where the children are, whose children are outside the house, whose children are far enough away from the house where the cameras won't catch. Yes, there's GPS on their vehicles, but as long as they can say they didn't see that kid. And if you think about how many other vehicles come up and pick up stuff on the street, if the kid was missing, they can't necessarily say, well, it's that guy who did it, that FedEx driver, he clearly kidnapped that kid. No, in this case, I think they got a tip, and then the GPS put together, they were able to catch this guy. But I think we're going to see a lot more of it, because we have too many of these running around everywhere. It's scary. It really is scary. And yes, the GPS system is really helpful. Same thing with if you're going to catch a share ride of some sort, and you're like, okay, well, I got to get from here to there. Which one's better? Let's see. Should I just call a taxi, which nobody uses anymore? They call Uber, right? I call Uber. I don't call a taxi. Taxis were creepy anyway to begin with, because when you got in, nobody even knew you got in the taxi, especially if they weren't coming to your home. You just grabbed it off the street. No one sees you get in. No one knows if the guy killed you or not. Uber at least does have a GPS system. So you have to put it into your phone, click, and then the car is proven to come to you because it's on his GPS. It's arriving now, and that's all tracked. So actually, Ubers are one of the safer choices these days. But I'm a little more concerned about the vehicles just running around all the neighborhoods in mass. So that's kind of a creepy new thing, which as our society changes, that we see happening. Let's see. David says it's especially scary that Amazon is launching a program to deliver packages inside your garage. All you have to do is give them the code. Really? Wow. Oh, that's concerning. Jeez. Yeah. I don't like that one. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because they're having problems with porch pirates. So, Amazon drops the thing off and people are watching the porches. And as soon as things dropped off, they come in and swoop down and steal them. So I guess the idea is that they put them inside, the door closes and that's that. They're safe. But yeah, the guy knows your code then. Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable with that one. I definitely wouldn't. Nina says, hi, Nina. I truly think child sex offenders should never be released. I'm good with that. It's an incurable mental disease. Yes, it's psychopathy. And kids shouldn't be sitting ducks for this kind of evil. Yeah, the problem, of course, is what they were convicted of. And that always gets tricky. So if it's something where it's a he said, she said, even if the kid is 6 and the guy's 30, and you're not quite sure what happened, or it's a public exposure thing, what is it exactly? Was it a rape? Was it what was it? And so they have these differing levels on that, but it's frightening when they're put back out there. Absolutely frightening. Let's see. Aunt Dina says, a woman came out and said she was allegedly raped by the FedEx driver, and no one would listen to her. Okay. Let's see what else you had to say about this. Was accused of rape earlier. A woman came out and said she'd been trying for years. She'd been raped by him when she was 6. She was 15. See, there you go. There's a he said, she said thing. And this gets tricky. So this is where the police end up with false reporting issues. Now, let's say, I'm just going to put this out there just so you can see how things can go wrong. Let me take a sip of this before I go into this. I'm going to make this story up. Your son is 20 years old. He decides he's going to take a job, FedEx. And he's dropping off all the packages. And while he's dropping off the packages, somewhere along the way, a girl flirts with him and they end up having sex. Which is stupid, but hey, people do these things. Then she comes out and says, I was raped by him. She's got no signs of injuries. And he says it wasn't a rape, it was consensual. What do the police do? I don't know, because that's what, is she lying? Did they have consensual sex? And then she's like, oh my God, maybe somebody saw me and they're going to tell my boyfriend that I had sex with this guy, or they're going to, whatever. And then she says, oh, I didn't do it. I wasn't consensual. He raped me. Do you want your son? He says, Mom, it was consensual. She'd go to jail for the rest of his life, prison for the rest of his life, because the girl claims she was raped. Then once that happens, if that information goes out into the community, here's the problem. And this is where sometimes the need for secrecy is so strong. Once you get a lawyer who gets that information out, or even the police ask for more information, you get people who will show up out of the woodwork and claim things happened to them that didn't happen to them. Sometimes you get a dozen women. Oh yeah, that happened to me too. That happened to me too. Especially if the guy's rich. It happened. That's where that Me Too thing. Did it really happen? Or is it because now you can make that claim and maybe get paid something? And you don't have to prove anything. All you have to do, and once you get an inkling of how the crime went down, you can relate a similar style crime. Now, of course, sometimes it's absolutely true. Here's the problem. What if she really was raped, but there's just no significant evidence outside the fact she had sex with him? What if they did go out and some girl who said, my God, I was 15. That happened to me too. I've been trying to tell people that nobody believed me. I told them it wasn't consensual. Maybe it was true. But how do you know the difference between that and this? That's what gets so tricky. And it's very easy for a lot of women to say, always believe the women. But I always wonder, do you have sons? Because I have sons. And I don't want my sons going to prison for the rest of their life because some girl decided to accuse him of something he didn't do. But that's why I tell you, hey, don't go with strange women. Stop doing that stuff. There are reasons that people used to have very more strict behavior, so that you wouldn't get accused of this crap. But when you go drinking with people and you end up in their bedrooms, anybody can claim anything. It's very hard sometimes to prove otherwise. So it's a mess, and it's a shame. It really is. It's a mess, and I don't have a good answer to it. I don't, except, yeah, I don't. She said it was by the guy who kidnapped the little girl. Okay. She had reported it, but no one would listen to her. Maybe that little girl would be alive if they had. She reported it. Okay. The question is, again, she said I don't know the circumstances. And see, this is what's so tricky. She may have reported it, and it was a he said, she said. They cannot just go out and arrest somebody on a he said, she said. They can't prove it in court. They got nothing. And then the question is, when did they report it? And this gets really tricky. And I have to use it. I love to use this particular one instance because this is such a great, I've told this story before, but it's a good one. And so my daughter was working here. Maybe I won't go to that story today, but no, I won't go to that story today. But let me put it this way. Sometimes the police are then told by somebody that the girl comes in and says, this is what happened. There is no physical evidence. Maybe it's 3 days later. Maybe it's even a year later. There's not one shred of evidence that the guy raped her outside of her stating that he did. It's not like she went right away to the police and she had, everything. She had bruises on her body and clear signs she had been assaulted. It's like a year later, she says, this guy did this to me. And then they asked the circumstances. Now, was it she was walking down the street and he attacked her from the bushes? Or was it they were hanging out together drinking? I don't know. And so unless I get details on that case, I don't think I can comment on whether it sounds like the police failed in their job or there was just nothing they could do. And I say police deal with an awful lot of accusations about with the cases like this, tons of these things. Sometimes it's a date rape situation or a date mistake situation. Sometimes it's a girl gets home late and her parents want to know why she's home late. So she says she was attacked. I mean, there's all kinds of strange things. You wouldn't believe what people say. Sometimes it's getting back at the ex-boyfriend for being dumped. Sometimes it's just getting attention. Oh, I want attention. So she says, oh, I reported this. Okay. If she did report it at the time, was it true? Or was it an attention getter at the time? Was it because she was embarrassed? If it was reported later, is it because she wanted attention? You just don't know. I think it's very, very tricky. So I have to look at the police report to even understand what the validity is and whether they failed in their job and how legitimate the claim was. So I honestly don't know. BLW says, I'm so glad you're addressing the false rape molestation reporting issue. I know men whose lives are nearly destroyed by this or entirely destroyed by this. It's tricky. I know it's tricky. Yeah, you do have a son too. So you understand what I'm saying. It's on both sides. I mean, I have a daughter and I have two sons. I would want my daughter to report something that happened to her if that happened to her. And I want my sons to not be accused wrongly. But then, if my sons were wrong, they would never be. But, if I had a son who was that kind, then I'd want the girl to report him. I mean, that's just me. But then, it's so tricky. It has got to be the trickiest thing ever. I mean, there's rapes which are no question that happened. Absolutely no question that happened. And okay, I'll give this. There's a better explanation that I can give. I used to work as a medical sign language interpreter. I worked at the hospitals, and I used to do rape cases, interpreting for rape cases. And here's what I saw. I'd see a couple girls come in, and one of the girls says I was raped, and she go into the room, and the story was this: I went to a party as I was drinking, and then I kind of don't remember what happened too much, and this guy was on top of me, blah blah blah. She does the rape kit, and after that, she turns to her friend and said, "You want to go to Denny's and get something to eat?" And I'm like, interesting. Now the question is, she could have really been raped. I don't know, but the fact is, she was drinking. She was with this guy. Did she say yes? And they did it, and then she didn't like it. Did she didn't remember she said yes? Was she completely out when it happened? See, that's the problem. The drinking thing really screws things up. And her own behavior, she was all very blasé about it. Makes it hard to take it overly seriously. And then what are they going to do? They get the guy, and he says, I didn't do that. It was consensual. We were both drinking. We had sex. The police are going to drop that case like a hot potato. But I had another case where the girl said she was walking to the bathroom, and a guy came up behind her and grabbed her and threw her into one of the side rooms and shut the door. And he attacked her, he raped her, and he spit on her. She went right away to the hospital. She called the police, went to the hospital. She had signs of being attacked violently. She cried nonstop through the entire process, nonstop crying. And I never forgot this, stuck in my head forever. And she signed, because she was deaf, she signed, I want my mommy. Over and over and over and over. I want my mommy. And she wasn't from this country. So her mommy was on the other side of the ocean. It was very sad. And I believed 100% she was raped. And the police did too. But you see, these are the differences you get in the cases. And unless you can prove it, it's really tough. It's really tough. And you don't know who the guilty party is. Is the girl lying and ruining this guy's life, or is this guy lying and ruining the girl's life? How do we know? How do we know? It's really sad. Oh, good Lord. Oh, don't get me started with recovered memories. Oh, yes, that's a big pile of nonsense. And any of the psychiatrists who do this crap, they should be thrown out of the profession. Absolute garbage. Such garbage. It's really sad. Benny says it's a bit like Eileen Franklin, who claimed in 1989 that she'd recovered memory of her father killing her best friend. It was a planted memory. Yeah. So, yeah, these things, unless you've got some proof, you got to have proof. Oh, I want to do this one case before I go, because I thought this was just bizarre. And the woman got off on this case. They let her go. They overturned her conviction. Wait till you hear this one. Okay, this is going to be my final one for today. So you can go out going, you got to be kidding. Court overturns conviction of a woman accused of trying to convince her son to kill his father with rat poison. I kid you not. All right. An appeals court has overturned a Mount Vernon woman's conviction for soliciting to kill her former husband. They overturned this. You're not going to believe why they overturned this. She had been found guilty in 2021 for trying to persuade her son to kill his father with rat poison. Valdeiglesias Laval was sentenced to 15 years in prison for the conviction, and it will now be sent back to trial court. Now, hopefully, it's unbelievable how this is the stuff in our system which drives me nuts. Valdeiglesias Laval in 2020 told her then 10-year-old son that if he put rat poison in her ex-husband's food, the boy's dad would die and she and the children could live together forever, according to a secretly recorded conversation mentioned in the court documents. This is a recorded conversation. This isn't hearsay. This isn't somebody's claim to get the ex-spouse in trouble, to steal the kid from them. This is a recorded conversation. The 3 Court of Appeals decision 1 judges ruled, these asses, that Valdeiglesias Laval's desire to be with her 2 children forever doesn't equate to a thing of value necessary to support a criminal solicitation conviction. So in other words, she was hiring her own son as a hit. This is a hit, right? To kill her husband. So normally when people hire a hit, they offer money, like I'll give you $10,000 if you kill my husband, right? They're claiming this doesn't qualify as a hit because she didn't offer anything of worth to her 10-year-old son. So I'm going to say if she had offered him, I don't know, the latest video game, she would have been, this would be convincing that she hired a hit. Now she said she would be with her children forever. And they were trying to say, well, maybe that was the money, the financial offering, that you'll get to stay with me forever, and then you won't have any problem. You'll be able to be with me, and that was the reward, that was the gift, as opposed to money. But they're saying because she didn't offer actual money, it's not a criminal solicitation. That's when a person offers to give or gives money a thing of value with the intent to promote or facilitate the commission of a crime. While it could be argued that a mother's love is priceless, does an expressed desire to be with their children forever equate a thing of value to support a criminal solicitation conviction? The court wrote in a published opinion. Well, we hold that it does not, because a thing of value must have a monetary value. Unbelievable, a monetary value. Valdeiglesias Laval's son testified during her trial in Skagit County Superior Court that his mother never spoke of offering to give him something. Valdeiglesias Laval's attorney, Suzanne Lee Elliott of the Washington Appellate Project, said she was pleased with the judge's opinion. I think they reached the right decision because how one defines solicitation can be either wildly over-inclusive or include actions that don't sufficiently indicate an intent or an exchange for the crime. So the father had suggested that his son secretly record the conversation using a phone hidden under a blanket. The documents included excerpts of the recording that show Valdeiglesias Laval talking to her son about putting rat poison in his father's drink. Listen to what mommy told their son to do. He take it and drinking, and he don't know nothing, so nobody's nothing. That's a secret between you and me, she said to her son, according to the documents. Really? So she asked her son to poison her husband, but she may get off because she didn't offer him a Game Boy. Wow. Isn't that interesting? I mean, what the heck? What the heck? I mean, this is the court system. This is insane. It's absolutely insane what happens in the court system. And, she's asking her 10-year-old son to commit a crime, and that she's not, they're going to let her off on this stuff? That's unbelievable. Oh, speaking of 10-year-old sons, I did want to mention this one while I'm at it, before I forget to do this one. This was the woman that was killed by her 10-year-old son. And here we have a whole family in a system that didn't deal well with things. A week ago, a young child committed a heinous act. A 10-year-old boy shot and killed his own mother in their Milwaukee home. He is now being charged with first-degree murder as an adult. So essentially, he claimed he was playing with a family handgun, and it discharged by accident. His mom was sadly hit in the head and would die from her injuries. When interviewed, the 10-year-old reiterated that report by saying he was twirling the gun on his finger when it accidentally went off. He then woke up his 26-year-old sister, who called 911, and they remained with his family following the tragedy. All right. But that's not what happened. All right. Initial complaints came from the boy's sister. She expressed to the police that her brother had serious anger issues, as well as a tendency to hear voices in his head. The boy was actually seeing a therapist who made the family aware of the boy's troubling mental health. The family had cameras installed in their house just for the purpose of keeping an eye on him. They were unplugged 2 weeks before the shooting. One of the boy's family members recounted the boy's mood in the days following his mother's death. She said that he showed absolutely no remorse or any emotion at all. The day after his mother's death, the boy asked his family if his Amazon package had arrived. What package was that? Well, that's what turned out he wanted. Apparently, they interviewed him again. He admitted that he intentionally got the gun and shot his mom because he was angry at her for not letting him order an Oculus virtual reality headset from Amazon, which I own and is quite cool. And it costs about $300. His sister learned that he logged onto the mother's account and ordered the headset the following morning. So he killed, because his mother wouldn't order it, he shot her, and then he ordered it for himself and was looking forward to his package coming, because now his mother was dead and out of the way. So what's the question that comes into your head when you hear this story? What's the first thing that jumps into your brain? Because I'll be curious if the same thing occurred to you as occurred to me. While I wait for that answer, I'll go back to Carrie. There are also cases where law enforcement refused to believe the rape victim and filed charges. Then proof in another state established the guilt of the race. Unbelievable. Yes. Okay. Unbelievable. I have to do a show on the unbelievable one. That was a really bizarre circumstance. And I can't quite remember all the reasons behind that weird situation. The man actually came in and was like clothed in black and came into the house and attacked her. But there were a lot of strange issues to do with the girl and social services and a whole bunch of things. I should do a whole show on that. And that was a mess. That was a messed up case. That's true. What happened to the story from Iowa, I think, is that the lady said her father was, that one. I don't know if that's are you talking about the Iowa one? That she claims that her father killed all these women, a serial killer, buried them all in the backyard, and she helped. And supposedly the police brought dogs out and they sniffed around and they thought they might have had some human remains in a well or something. I haven't looked at that case in a while to see whatever happened with it. Did they prove she was lying, or is it? Okay, wait a minute. Iowa daughter. I'm trying to figure out how to father serial killer search. Let's see what I can come up with here. In October, they investigated. Claims her father's a serial killer. I don't think anything's come forth since then. Let's see. Lucy Studley was her name. Let me see if I have anything more recent on that. I've forgotten about that one. I've talked about it before. Her sister says it's garbage. I don't know whether it is or it isn't. It seems really weird that she helped her father all these years, and for years she helped her father as a child, but nobody else knows that. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything yet on whether they found any actual bodies on there and not. Okay, thank you. Why was the gun not locked up? I looked at that. Guess what? The gun was locked up. He got to the gun through the key for the safe. Of course, then you ask, yes, how do you access the gun? Apparently with a key. Oh, how did he access her account to order on her dime? That's another good question. Did she just allow him to have access to her account, or what's going on there? What was the kid's sister up to while he was killing mom? That's also another good question. I don't know. But what occurred to me is this. You take her. Some of me wonders what the psychiatrist told him, because this kid to me is a psycho, exhibits traits of a psychopath. Whether he actually heard voices or he just claimed that to mess with people's minds, I don't know. There are sometimes overlaps between a kid with a psychopath and also schizophrenia could be overlapping. But they take him to this person and who says, hey, he's got some issues here. And so they put up cameras in the house to keep an eye on him. He's been in that house for a long time. They have to know the level of his dangerousness. And actually, wait a minute. I think I found something. Oh, wait a minute. I found something. Okay, wait a minute. I forgot about this. Okay, hold on a second. Where's the other part on this? Let me see, because there was more to this. I forgot. Okay, here we go. Here's the other stuff on it. Okay. They said he had mental health issues. All right. But what were those get this one. Okay. Gets worse. It really does get worse. The 26-year-old sister told detectives that he had rage issues all his life and 5 different imaginary people that talked to him. Another family member and another one, which is important because if it all came from the sister, you start going, maybe your sister is the problem. Another family member. And of course, this is, again, maybe this is just gossip. The kid did kill his mother, so I'm willing to take a look at this. Another family member told police the boy displayed cruelty toward animals and used to pick up the family puppy by its tail and swing the puppy around until it whined and howled in pain. This allegedly occurred when the boy was 4 years old. 6 months ago, family told police the boy filled a balloon with flammable liquid and set it on fire, causing an explosion that burned the furniture and a carpet. The complaint states the boy was taken to a therapist. Then they took him to a therapist? Really? What was happening in all those other years between the swinging of the dog? So then the therapist delivered a concerning diagnosis, and his mother reportedly placed cameras inside the home to watch him. 2 weeks afterwards, someone unplugged the cameras. Could be the kid himself, because he's not an idiot. And then this is when she gets shot, because he accessed the key to... So supposedly, this is what he said. He admitted that he got his mother's gun because he was mad at her for waking him up at 6 a.m. and for prohibiting him from buying the virtual reality headset. So then he took the keys to his mom's gun safe right before the shooting. Okay. Your kid shows very, very dangerous symptoms. Now, fire, hurting of animals, those are two of the three of the triad. Bedwetting is a third of the triad for serial killers when they're young people. Now, not all serial killers have the triad thing going, but when they do, you usually got a major issue on your hands. So this family had this kid who clearly already at 4, and I've said that you can show psychopathic tendencies when you're 2 and 3 years old and be very dangerous even that young. When that's being shown, how long did it take you to get to a quote therapist? And if that's true, you have to take extra precautions. The cameras were a good idea, but they were off for 2 weeks and you didn't notice it. The kid is alone. Maybe that kid should never be alone, except under very, very stringent conditions. The fact that you had a gun in the house, but you're stupid enough to leave the keys around so your kid can get it and get the gun. Seriously, that's ridiculous. You would need, you get a better safe. Get a safe that has a code on it that your kid does not see you put in, has a thumbprint thing or whatever you got to do to make sure the kid can't access the safe that your gun is in, so he can kill you with it. Or you can kill his sister, which would have been worse in my opinion, because his sister is, you're the mom. And so I don't know what mom was thinking, but this kid was a danger. It was a danger since he was a young child. That kid is probably in school and it was a danger to other children. And God knows what he would have turned into. Now he's only 10. He's being put away for a long time. But the court system is going to say at some point when he's cured that he should get out early. And he's still going to be what he is today, which is most likely a psychopath and a dangerous one. And he'll be out on the streets at some point because somebody's going to look back 10 years from now and say, he was just a 10-year-old kid. There must have been things wrong in that home for him to have those issues. And then they'll get soft-hearted and they'll let him out. And then they'll kill somebody else. So just crazy. It's really, really sad. God. Wonder why psychopaths are prone to bedwetting as kids. That's a good question. And there's a couple of theories. One is that they have problems and children have problems, maybe from abuse, bedwet. The other theory is some of them do it on purpose to piss off the mom. Oh, I've been doing puns lately. That's my second one of the week. Yes, because there's very little a child controls, but one thing they control is the bed. And it really does upset the mom. When the mom comes in the morning and the bed is wet, that's a pain in the butt. They have to then get the kid out. They got to take the kid's clothes off. They got to get all the sheets off. And they hopefully have plastic around the mattress. And then they have to wipe everything down. They got to wash everything. It's a lot of work. And it makes parents very angry. They don't mean to be necessarily, but it's frustrating. And then the kid does it day after day after day. They just really drives them nuts. So that's one way to get back at your parents. Then hurting the animals is something that you either have pets or you can go hurt nature or the next door neighbor's animal. That's the power and control you can get right in a small vicinity. You don't have a car yet. You don't have a lot of power, but you can do that. You can also light fires. It's very easy to light a fire one way or the other and burn something in your own house or burn down your neighbor's shed. So those three things are within your control at a very young age. And sometimes it gets even further where they start hurting other children at a very young age. And that's where the danger really shows up very quickly. But people don't know what to do with it because the child is so young. They're like, what do we do with a 5-year-old who exhibits these conditions? And then they go to the psychiatrist and they come up with 10 different labels. Oh, he's got ADHD. He's got this. He's got that. Then, and they don't know what to do with them. So they maybe drug him out a little bit. And then he gets bigger and he gets more dangerous. And then he gets smarter and he's able to conceal things better. And then you say, when he turns into a 20 to 30-year-old and kills people, people go, we never noticed that. Like maybe the signs were there, but just weren't paying attention. No pun intended. Really, no. So I see these Freudian slip things, I try not to say these things on air. Really, I do. Yeah, it gets very difficult when it comes to children and trying to decide what to do with them. Because even if they have all the psychopathic tendencies in the world, and even if they tried to hurt animals before, if they tried to smash a brick over their brother's head, what do you do with them? What does our system say you should do with a child like that? They say, well, you get to send them to therapy, but they're not fixable. So you send them to therapy and they just get better at lying to the therapist and manipulating the therapist and pretending stuff. And you take a look at the Luca Magnotta case. I mean, that kid was clearly in the psychopathic category at a very young age. And his mother excused it. And then he went to school and people didn't like him probably because he was creepy. And, he eventually just left school and went, got in the porn industry. And then he got into other things. So there was nothing to stop him really, except the law. But when the child is young, the law has even trouble stopping a small child, because I'm telling you, this kid's 10 years old. There are going to be defense attorneys on this case. There's going to be appeal after appeal after appeal on this case. That they're going to say that he was coaxed into saying he killed his mother because of this. And that's the next thing down the pike. He did say that he was just, he did say this. He had taken the keys to his mom's gun safe the night before the shooting. He allegedly said he pointed the gun at his mother and wanted to shoot the wall to scare her, but she walked in front of him. Now you see, now it's saying it's an accident. So what do you do? So here's the attorney. This is an absolute family tragedy, said Angela Cunningham, one of the boys' attorneys. I don't think anyone would deny or disagree with that. Of course, it's a family tragedy. The adult system is absolutely ill-equipped to address the needs of a 10-year-old. The needs of a 10-year-old. Not the crimes of a 10-year-old, the needs of a 10-year-old. So I'm going to tell you, it's going to be appealed over and over again. And they're going to say that, the police managed to, and this is a problem when the police have to interview a young child, they have to get somebody who's really good at interviewing children and do it properly and with a videotape and all that, so that the child isn't led to say things that they didn't mean. But it's still very difficult. And then eventually it can be claimed that that child was manipulated and led to saying things. And then if it doesn't work, the police did it. Then you get say the sister told them to say that. Who knows what they're going to come up with? But I guarantee you, they're going to say this child was too young to formulate the concept in his head that he wanted his mother dead. As a matter of fact, here's what they could have said. I don't know if they said it in court already or whatever, but here's what they would say. If I were a defense attorney, I would say that child was too young to understand that shooting his mother would mean that she was dead and would never come back. He doesn't understand life and death that well. And he was merely thinking that he could do something to her temporarily, that would get her to do what he wanted, or that would allow him to make the purchase that he wanted. And he didn't understand that this was a one-way street here, that she would that it was going to be permanent. He didn't understand that in his little 10-year-old brain. And he'll be back out. I swear, he's not going to spend a life in prison. He's not. He's going to be out. It's very, very frightening. So, yes, that is what I said. I'm not going to put that back up on the screen. I only said that pun once there, Benny. Lisa S. says, that is what fascinates me about any psychopathy. How does it start? Why? And what can we do about it? And that is probably going to be something we're going to deal with for centuries. We definitely see areas of the world where children have massive trauma in their early lives. In El Salvador, because of the war, the ongoing war there has created an awful lot of little young ones growing up that seems to have a high rate of psychopathy, or psychopathy as it's now pronounced, and I never do pronounce it that way. Rwanda, that has had a lot of children there. I think also down in Congo, you got a lot of child soldiers who don't have a problem killing. So you have situations with severe poverty and war seem to generate, because of the loss of family, the loss of mothers, the loss of fathers, the constant danger, the attractiveness of doing something to fight back, to have some meaning, even if it means carrying a machine gun, and taking people out, that kind of thing. Some kind of, it's sad, but that's where you see some of the worst psychopathy. And then when you get here in this country or in other countries where things are a little bit more stable, you see things that tend to pop up more in families that aren't doing well, where the children the children get that attachment disorder. They don't feel like they're loved. They become kind of like they realize that they don't have a lot of power, so they decide they're going to get it in every way possible. They start learning how to play a game of chess, and it's their game, not yours. And then they grow up. So how to stop this? Well, you have to improve families. We have to improve communities. We have to improve nurturing. That's the best way to stop it. Other than that, we're never going to stop it by saying, okay, it's only in the head. Well, they're born that way. I don't believe they're born that way. I believe they're born with a personality and maybe some tendencies. But if we go there, we might as well, we just lobotomize every child that's born. Solve the problem. What are we going to do? So the child is going to be born, and then we have to provide the best environment possible, and also have enough rules of society which do have a child have some kind of guidelines under which they need to live, and not that they're just, floating everywhere with no understanding of, nobody's presenting right and wrong, and they don't even have to pay attention to right and wrong. And maybe wrong is even more exciting than right. So, you get a whole bunch of, it's very complicated. But I just say we have to improve family and community. And the more we destroy family and community, the more trouble we're going to have. And that's just my little opinion on that from seeing what I've seen from kids growing up and committing horrendous crimes. Do you think that the wave of serial killers in the 60s and 70s had to do with their fathers having PTSD from World War II? I still wonder whether we really had more serial killers in the 60s and 70s, because I see an awful lot of serial killers out here today, and their lists are pretty darn long too of how many people they've killed. But I still think it starts with attachment disorder, and that starts when the child is very young and usually in the care of their mom. So their father's coming home and having PTSD, adding to the family dynamics. Possibly. Of course, many of those children just lost their fathers, never had their fathers. There was a lot of, that was also a time when society was in a lot of transition. And some of the rules and regulations got all kind of, confusing. But it starts young. So that's the real problem. It's not like you got to be a healthy teenager and a healthy adult and you turn into a serial killer. So it starts that young. Your psychopathy starts before you're 5. You're like established. How you act out your psychopathy eventually in life is a completely different matter, but it's still there very, very young. So I say that's attachment disorder. Something wrong in that small circle. And then later on, when you get older, if society doesn't have a good way to control a person like that, then you run into problems. I do think in the past, in certain societies, I guess there was a sort of advantage when there were massive wars, because the psychopaths could just go to war, and they either shot people and had a good time or they got killed. Solved problem. They're gone. But when you have to act, when you have to survive in a real world where there's not war, where you're going to work and are supposed to get married and all these kind of things, and you can't win at that world, then you might find another way to deal with it. So it's a messy thing. Yeah. That's what it is. And we're going to probably be arguing that forever and ever and ever. All right. Anyway, that's it for today. That is Hangout number 67. I appreciate you all being here. You're all wonderful as usual. And I'm going to wait to see what happens tomorrow with the Boy in the Bronx thing. So I may do a video on that. If you're seeing this show tomorrow, also check to see if I've already done that, because this show may not go up until sometime on Thursday. I haven't picked out my topic for Sunday yet, and I may actually have an extra special one this week. Haven't decided yet. Depends on whether I get sucked into Christmas stuff or not. If I don't, then I got more time. So it's always been great having you here as usual. Thank you very much, Lisa Ann. I'm glad all the patrons were here. That's fabulous. What's this? Oh Lord, what's her killer? Let me put it this way, Sandra. I can check into the axe murder of Betty Gore. Was her? I'm taking a picture of this just so I can remember it. I don't remember that case, and it's a long time ago, so it's hard to say. Sometimes you can't really analyze things that went on too far past because there's just not enough information. But I will say this. Almost always, in my opinion, psychopaths who have premeditated crimes and do horrific things in my opinion, are almost always psychopaths, if not always psychopaths. The point simply being that people say we're all capable of everything. I don't agree with that. There are things that we will not do. No matter what, we would not do it. I mean, that's why you have somebody could come here today and say, if you don't do this, I will do that to you. And I might stand here and say, I won't do that. There's a very famous doctor. It's a book called, I think it's called The Nazi Doctors. I'm not sure. I have the book and it's really good. But anyway, there was a Jewish doctor, female, who was in the concentration camps. And she was given the job, because she's a doctor, of selecting who should die and who shouldn't. So the concept, and she was told this by Mengele. Mengele says to her, well, look, you have the option to save who you want to save. In other words, you can figure out this one's healthier than this one, kill this one, keep this one. That gives you the power actually to do some good. And she says, I won't do it. I will not select people to die. I will not do it. And Mengele says, well, then I will kill you. And she said, well, that's fine, because if I had to do that, I'd kill myself. And he had so much respect for her, he let her live. So impressive. But there are many things, I think, as people who are not psychopaths, that you might say to me, Pat, you have to do this or I will do that. And I would stand here and say, you'll have to kill me. I won't do that. I won't. Simply won't. So we do have, if you have a line you won't cross, you may not be a psychopath. If there's no line that really bothers you except for your own self-interest, you may be a psychopath. But I think anybody who kills off their family, how do you do that? How do you do that without psychopathy in your head? How? Unless you're literally insane. How do you do that? I can understand suicide. I think suicide is very cruel to other people as well as yourself, because for yourself, you're thinking you're getting out of having to deal with things, but you're leaving all your family with lifelong pain, which I think is cruelty. That's one reason I would never do that to myself, because I just think how my kids have to live with that. And I hope my kids would never do it to themselves, because I don't want to have to live with that. So suicide is murder. It's just self-murder, and it leaves victims behind. And so when you have empathy for other people, there's a limit to the things you would do. I mean, you have no empathy toward anybody except yourself, then it all matters of weighing out whether it benefits you or not. And if it benefits you, you do it. If it doesn't benefit you, you won't do it. It's kind of like that. So I think murder. I don't know about that murder, but generally speaking, most murders, in my opinion, unless it's an accident, I say accidental murder. Somebody murdered somebody in a panic, something like that, misjudged. But a premeditated, every serial killer, in my opinion, is a psychopath. I don't have any problem saying that. I think an awful lot of family annihilators are psychopaths, in my opinion. And the rest of them, it all just depends. So I'll have to look that one up. So, it's your first live, Melanie. Well, glad you were here. And this is what we do here. This is what we do. Let's see what else says here. Oh, Nina too. That's also your first hangout. Oh, welcome, Nina. I'm glad you were here. Yeah, I love doing the hangouts once a week. It's all free, kind of like free form. I can't find things, but that's just me, and I don't edit. So, but I enjoyed having you all here, and I'll see you maybe I'll have the video out tomorrow. It won't be a live show. We'll have a video out tomorrow, and hopefully I'll see you here for the Sunday live and maybe the surprise live if I decide to do it. So look forward to seeing you again, and goodbye, everybody, until next time. Bye.